as we near the end of today's session, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker to deliver the closing remarks for the summit. Mr. Randy Wade from EIG Global Energy Partners. Randy is the president of EIG and a member of its investment and executive committees. And Randy, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you also for your team at EIG. The effort that's been put in has been instrumental in making this event today. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Randy to deliver the closing remarks for this summit.
Thank you, Andrew, for that introduction. I really want to thank everyone for joining us today and committing the time to this, what's proven to be a timely discussion and one that I've learned a lot from. Certainly want to thank our partners at EDF and Quantum for really creating this idea and bringing it to fruition. I'd say that today, the idea of private equity partnering with industry in a way such as this to tackle a current problem is pretty unique. This is the first such session that I'm aware of. I hope that won't be the case for long, and that, in months and years to come, this will become more commonplace. So at EIG, we've been investors in the energy business globally for almost 40 years now. We have aspirations to continue that for decades to come. And so really the perspective I thought I would just share briefly is that as an investor in the space, and so what this means to our business, how we evaluate companies and opportunities, and also what we hear from our investors, how they evaluate us and decide whether or not to allocate capital to this business. So I'll just provide a couple of quick observations. So one, this matters. ESG and the environmental side of that in particular is very important, and we think it is a substantive issue that needs to be addressed. Even if you don't believe that, this issue is not going away. This is not, in our view, something that is driven by political environment that is likely to change, and that if we just kind of wait it out a couple of years, we can go back to the way we used to do business. The investment universe as it relates to energy has changed dramatically. And I used to tell people 2 years ago, this is one of those places where you kind of see the train coming and you have the choice of either trying to get on the train or getting run over by the train. Well, the train's here. I said the amount of capital available to the industry is at an all-time low. Not all of that is tied to environmental concerns or ESG concerns, but clearly that's a significant headwind. And we as an industry and investors either find a way to address those concerns in a meaningful fashion, or we face a pretty existential threat. So fortunately for EIG, we've had an environmental committee for the better part of a decade. Like our friends at Quantum, we have a dedicated leader of our ESG committee, Emily Rogers. But we've taken a real step forward in our approach over the last couple of years. We think this is a place where we can and need to be leaders. So we're going to take this very seriously, and we're going to look to actually achieve results. Part of we do this is, we want to be good corporate citizens, and we think it's the right thing to do for our communities. But we also think this is good business. We think done correctly, this is not a place where you have to sacrifice good policy versus good return. You take methane as an example. We find there's a pretty strong correlation between our companies that excel in limiting methane emissions and who are good at operating the rest of the business. And those are the types of companies we believe will be more successful in the long term, and those are the companies that we want to partner with. I think we've entered a phase of this discussion where platitudes and marketing commitments and programs are no longer sufficient. I'd say over the last decade, it's felt like the industry's approach, or at least the investment industry's approach, has been much more qualitative focused, diligence focused, a little bit of process oriented. But we really become in a place where we need to achieve measurable results. And so we're going to become, or have become, much more quantitative, empirical, and we either say, achieve the results that need to be, or we all face a significant crisis. This summit is the approach, is an example of the approach that we think we can contribute to. Bringing together other sources of capital and industry expertise to help collaborate and spread knowledge, best practices, ideas, is the thing that we can do. I think climate change, ultimately requires meaningful policies, participation from kind of all segments of public and private life. But this is the step that we can do. And so I really hope everyone found today useful. Candidly, I learned a lot listening to the experts in the field. We hope you'll take this back with you, continue to take steps on this issue and others to address the environment and the investment climate that we're at. Because, what's at stake for us, as Will eloquently noted, is it's not only kind of the impact of the U.S. industry versus the rest of the world, and do we lose clout and economics to less focused investors and nations. That's true, but I think it's actually more significant that we either find a way to particularly have natural gas be the bridge fuel in energy transition, or we run, energy going from being a substantial portion of global GDP, that's something that's a much diminished space, and that renewables and alternative forms of energy will bypass us if we're not able to do this well. So with that, again, I just want to thank everyone for their time and attention, and look forward to doing this again in the near future. Andrew, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Randy. They're amazing, really powerful closing remarks. And for methane emissions and environmental stewardship, like, the train is indeed here, and it's time to get on or get hit, as you said. I think I'll be co-opting that phrase of yours, if you don't mind. Thank you again to all of today's speakers, panelists, and everyone in the audience. And a special thanks to Rick and Dominic from EDF for the enormous amount of work that they have put in behind the scenes to make this event happen and to run so smoothly. So just a reminder, after this webinar, there'll be a recording distributed, as well as resources, a follow-up survey, and some of the answers to the questions that we unfortunately didn't get to today. And that's all today, folks. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.